Welcome, welcome. How's it going today? Great to be in conversation with you, and I'm going to get started in just a few seconds here on this excellent topic for today. I'm just going to check and make sure that everything is. Oh, I see that my title is a little off on the Facebook feed. That's gonna we'll see what happens there. I'd probably actually draw more people in. Um, all right. So today, I'm going to be diving into a topic around taking the lead to create authentic and honest environments. This is a topic that comes up very often in coaching, as you can imagine, from our home environment to our work environment to, just really any environment that we're in. The ideal is that we get to create and be in a space that feels authentic, that feels honest, that feels just good to be in. And so a lot of the times when I'm in conversations with folks, we're looking at like, hey, how does this show up for you? What are the environments that you're in like? How are you showing up in those environments? So I'm going to be spending some time speaking to this today because my experience of it, of course, in my own life and in supporting others, is that when we have toxic environments, whether that's at home, whether that's at work, or in other places, it can be really demoralizing. It can really affect us. It can affect our confidence. It can affect, our progression, how we show up in those environments. And it can generally just not be a very fun space to be in. And what is life if we're not getting to have fun, or if we're not getting to enjoy the day to day things that are happening for us? So, this is going to be the topic that I'm diving into today. I've got some great, components to go with this. If you have any questions as we're in this conversation together, or just any real life examples that you'd like some support around, please feel free to share in the chat and I will bring it into the conversation. That's whether you're live or if you're coming in on the replay afterwards. And if you're sitting here and you're like, this is an area that I'd love to get some support around, my leadership, how I'm showing up in the world, how I can support others, how I can have these difficult conversations, I'll invite you to check out a couple of the programs that I have. One would just be the membership group, where we dive into topics like this as a group on a regular basis. That's one place to look. And then the other one, if you're looking for a higher level of support, getting my personal attention and really working on this together, I will also share a link to what I would call the just my one-on-one coaching program called the Authentic Being. And this program is open to men or women, and it's really, the work there is powerful, right? We're working on this stuff week by week, and you're going to see how I work with this in some of the examples that I give. So I'm going to put those links in the chat. uh, Hopefully, it's one of those things you gotta sort of preemptively do this, and hopefully it shows through there. If not, I'll just adjust it after the video. So there's one link for the membership, and then there's the second link for um, the one-on-one coaching, and it shows me that it's just showing up on YouTube. So hopefully it populates on Facebook, and if not, I'll put it on afterwards. All right, so let's dive in. So, in the preamble and the intro, I'm really, this is a topic that I'm passionate about because I've seen such an improvement in my own life by being able to address some of these things, in my life, and ultimately, like being able to support others on this journey of creating, healthy um, environments. It's such a cool topic. Like, I'm not going to shortchange it because it really is a game changer. It changes our lives when we're able to just show up authentically in the world, have the conversations that we need to have, and really feel like we can flourish in whatever environment that we're in. And so that's the work. That's what we're here to do this morning. So, the first place to really start is taking stock of your world, taking stock of, you know, where are the breakdowns happening in your environments, right? So as you reflect on your home, as you reflect on your work environment, maybe like an extended family environment, or your family. Very clear, Andrew. Really just checking in with yourself and seeing like, okay, what's going on? Am I noticing that there's passive aggressiveness? Is there conflict happening here? Is there a lack of trust? Is there, just negativity happening in the space? We want to start to get really clear on what these environments look like. Because once we're clear, then we can start to make some decisions. But the first step is getting that clarity and really even checking in with yourself like, hey, where am I not showing up in these environments, right? Where do I continually like let things go or, allow people to sort of like there's a whole bunch of things really, but like, where do conversations sort of end up being vague or nebulous and I'm left like wondering if if this person is going to follow up in the future or those types of things. So again, without making it too complicated, we really want to take stock of our environment. We really want to get clear on like what's happening in these places. So let me know if you have any questions on this. Again, if you have any examples, it's always fun to play with examples that can potentially come up. And actually, one thing I'm going to just do really quick is open up. I'm just going to open up the chat really quick because sometimes I don't see it on this platform. Just give me 1 second here. Okay, we'll leave it at that for now. So, yeah, let me recollect myself. Right. So really, first step is doing an analysis of your environments and really determining, hey, where am I not showing up? Where am I allowing these things to happen in my environment? And also starting to analyze like who are the people that are impacting these environments, right? Is it your spouse or your partner? Is it your boss? Is it coworkers? And really getting specific on who are these individuals. Again, this is work that I do with my clients on a regular basis. You can imagine that in the coaching environment, a big focus is on, what I'll sort of call it relationship, on connection with others. And so again, this is going to show up in a variety of ways. And we really want to get specific on how we're showing up, but also how others are showing up as well. So that's first step, right? We take care of that. Then now we start to look at, okay, we've got an idea of where I'm not showing up, where others are, potentially impacting the environment. And here's the next piece is we really want to start to get clear on like what needs to be addressed versus what needs to be let go of. And this is a skill set. This is something that's going to come with time. I think that the ideal here is really to be in a place where when things are bothering you or when things are feeling like they're toxic or they're not fun to be around, to start to address these things on a more regular basis. The the thing that's here is like if you found that you've traditionally been somebody that doesn't address things, the sneaky thing that can happen here is like as you get into the space of like, well, should I address this or should I not? You may start to lean towards like, well, not a lot of things need to be addressed. Just look at that because this could be an opportunity to really step out and really challenge how things have gone for you in the past and start to address these things that are showing up for you. So this is that second step is really um looking at, and I'm just reading off my notes here, like what needs to be addressed and what can be set aside. And another place also to look at in this is like, what have you avoided or what have you, again, allowed to be in the space? And again, we want to start getting that recollection, right? So, a couple places you could look are like, okay, in my marriage, what are some of the behaviors that I generally see, from my partner? Are there passive aggressive behaviors? Is there belittling? And again, it's not just your partner. Also looking at yourself as well. What are some of the behaviors that you generally bring into the relationship? Are you being passive aggressive? Are you, bringing explosive behaviors into the space? Um, Same thing, starting to look at your work environments or your family environments and just seeing like what needs to be addressed, both from me and from others. Again, let me know if you have any questions on that at all. Now we move into step 3. So, again, we've taken stock of our environments. We've taken in this analytical approach to assessing, like, hey, what's going on here. Step two is we started to separate, like, okay, what needs to be addressed versus what doesn't need to be addressed. And one more piece that I want to say to that is that really, you know, there is like the mentality that is such a good one to bring is like, what is at the top of the mountain that needs to be addressed? Because there could be 100 things that could be addressed in the work environment, and starting to get into that mentality of like, what's the big thing? Like, if I actually speak to the big thing that's going on in this environment, can it sort of have a trickle down effect where it addresses all those other areas? So I just wanted to add that point in. Now we move on to step three. And step three is asking for the conversation from that individual or individuals, um, and having a goal in mind for that conversation. So again, I imagine there's going to be some of you who are like, okay, I have not been asked, I've been purposely avoiding these behaviors that have showed up, and now you're asking me to step up and have that conversation. Yes, because, again, this is such an important piece of stepping into that leadership is you leading the environment, you calling yourself forward to really create that authentic and honest environment for all. Because the likelihood is the people around you aren't going to do it. Um, if they would have done it, they would have already done it. And so it's going to be up to you and your leadership to take this step. And again, the the place here to start is just start small, right? Invite that person into a conversation, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your boss, whether it's a coworker. And the easiest place to start with is pulling that person aside, is really saying like, hey, can I have some, can we schedule some time to talk? Can we have a few minutes in this day to have a conversation together? And just see what that person does. If that person's a no, okay, something more to address there. Most of the time, people are going to be a yes. Most of the time, as much as it feels like people don't want to create a good environment, the reality is most people do want to be in a good environment. So, like, by you stepping up into that leadership and taking this opportunity to like really invite that conversation, you might be surprised as to what happens. And again, you want to start to look at like, what is the goal of the conversation, right? If you lay out everything on this person in this one conversation, how's that going to go? It might not go that well to start. We don't know. And so the thing that you might want to start to look at is like, what might be the goal, the first goal, the first small step? Is there a behavior that needs to be addressed? Do you need to share how you're feeling in this environment, how this person is impacting you? um, do you need to share where you haven't shown up? Maybe you haven't been addressing the behaviors or you've allowed these things to carry on, right? So there's a number of ways that you can bring this into the conversation. um, and that's really like the step three is inviting that conversation into the space, taking that lead and scheduling that time with the individual. Not necessarily going to get into today like what's going to happen if the person doesn't want to have a conversation, but that might be a topic to explore for another time. Now, the next place we want to look at is bringing some element of completion into the conversation, some sort of next step, and creating an agreement, something that's sort of concrete that you can walk away from the conversation with. Because if you reflect on, we'll call it life, that most of the time there's a whole bunch of incompletion that we have in our lives. And not just us, but the others around us as well. We have an argument, and there's sort of a lukewarm apologies happening, but like the thing isn't actually like being addressed. Or we're constantly in these spaces, these toxic spaces, these environments where there's passive aggressiveness, and it just creates this emotional baggage, this heaviness, which I would call incompletion. Like we're just walking around incomplete. And so the opportunity here is to start to bring completion to these conversations, a next step. This is such a fun practice to get into, and it is a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning, but I cannot stress enough the importance of starting to bring completion to your life. And I'll dive into that a little bit more. And so, for example, like for me, I can share two examples. A couple weeks back, I was in an interview for a coaching position, and as we were going back and forth in this conversation, there was a point where we weren't totally aligned on like what the parameters of the position would be, and I shared my side of like, well, you know, based on the salary requirements and what is being offered, like I would, I'd have to sort of basically like this position would have to be like a hybrid position, or like, I wouldn't be able to move for this position. And the person on the other side of the phone with me was like, okay, great, like thanks for letting me know. And so I want you to sit with that for a second, because you can hear the incompletion in that, right? If we were both to leave that conversation in that moment, I would be leaving like, well, am I going to hear anything back? What does this person even think of where we're at right now? Of course, these things are happening in my mind. And I imagine that there's stuff on their side as well. So, a simple thing to just bring into that conversation is like, hey, given what I've shared with you, how are you feeling right now? What are you sensing right now? Right. So notice that that could be brought into any conversation, right? Conversation with your spouse, conversation with your boss, really getting to the heart of like, where are you at right now, given the conversation that we're having? So that's sort of one place to look at completion. And then the other thing I'll speak to is really getting, again, if we're talking about the heart of the matter, of really ensuring that you and the person across from you understand the dynamic. So, again, like another place that I can share I was in a conversation with a client. We were talking about the potential of, just working together in a program, and the individual, at first kind of came back. I wasn't really sure like where they stood or even the timeline on things. And that's something that I brought back into the space. Is like, hey, how are you feeling about this right now? Like, what's present for you? And then also coming to that place of like, and when will I hear back from you? When will we be able to follow up on this part of the conversation? So this is the practice of really starting to get into like gaining clarity for both sides, leading to gain that clarity so that you're clear. You have an understanding of where you're at. If there's, say, let's say there's been passive aggressiveness in the space. Is the passive aggressiveness going to continue? Is the person going to work on that? Are you going to work on that? And have you expressed that? So that's like sort of one part of it, is like being clear on both sides. And then there's the opportunity to really like set a date. When can we follow up? When can we continue this conversation? And that leads me into my next and final point of, make sure you follow up, because it's one thing to have these conversations for a one off and hoping that like things will change. The likelihood is like this is going to take some time. It may or may not, but like again, being the type of person that shows up, leads, and then follows up on these things, it's going to create a different environment. It's really, it's inevitable, right? Because what happens then is people start to understand that, like, hey, John is the type of person that, when he's being mistreated, he's going to address it. And not only is he going to address it, he's going to follow up on it. Same thing in a relationship. Melissa, when she's being, mistreated, or she feels like, she's being stepped over, I'm expecting that she's going to address that, like, because that's the being that she's bringing into the space. And that is that whole aspect of leadership, is really creating that persona that like, hey, we will lead, we will show up, we will have these conversations, these difficult conversations. And so it calls people forward. So I'm gonna leave it at that for now, in terms of the steps. Again, if you have any questions or anything that's just present for you as we've been in this conversation, please feel free to put it in the chat, or send me a message afterwards, because I absolutely love this topic. Again, it shows up in many different flavors in the work that I do, and so it just felt like a great time to bring this into the space, because I imagine that there's others who are really craving to bring that authenticity and that honesty into their environments, and they're just looking for some ways to get started. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to bring them into the conversation. And then the last piece that I'll just share is that if you are looking for some support around this, you know, whether it's in your intimate relationships, in your career, in family dynamics, or really any dynamic, and you're like, you know what, this is the time. I really want to get some support here. I want to step into my leadership, and I want to be supported in a deep way. Take a look at some of the programs that I'm offering, whether it's the membership program or whether it's the one-on-one coaching. There's definitely some ways that you can be supported on this journey. So again, and I'll put those links in the chat at the end of the conversation. So that's it for me today. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.